CGO, and if you would like to have such a discussion, maybe you can do it outside the conference room. We have got 2 items on today's agenda. Employment in one stop at Shui Wai, as well as the severance payment, long service payment ceilings. We haven't received any proposed amendments to the draft minutes for the 15th of April 2014. So minutes confirmed, and we can invite the administration to join us on the 2 discussion items.
係等佢係啦。好啊。咁我哋上次到。
Since the last meeting, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung on the 11th of June 2014 wrote in to talk about his proposed members' bill entitled Minimum Wage Amendment Bill 2014. You'll find it in paper CB bracket 21849/113 to 14 bracket 01. We have also received a letter from Madam Chen Yun-han saying that we should tell the administration to complete expeditiously the interim review report of the Standard Working Hours Committee. Ms. Chen's letter has been forwarded to the administration as well. Ms. Chen. Mr. Chairman, I'm really very concerned about the topic. I hope the administration won't drop the matter. Yes, certainly. Mr. Deputy Commissioner for Labor, please address Ms. Chen's request. She would like you to complete the interim review report. Have you already done so? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the last Manpower panel meeting, we were made aware of your request. We have already referred the request to the Standard Working Hours Committee. The chair and the members are aware of members' requests. In fact, as of now, we are going full steam to carry out the consultation exercise, and it will end by the 31st of July. Information will then be collated, and then by September or October this year, we're going to come back to the Manpower panel. Ms. Chen, of course, I know. You have already announced the deadline well in advance, but that will take us to end of the year. How much time will be left for us to deal with very controversial topic of standard working hours? You say you are working on it. I respect you. You just carry on. But we're interested in knowing the interim result. How come that you need so much time to finish the report? This is similar to the case of universal retirement protection. We've been asking the administration to work on it. When you want to come, you ask us to hold a meeting immediately. Now, I just want to impress upon the administration that I'm most unhappy about the procrastination. For standard working hours, we first raised the issue 2 terms of the electrical ago. Now, you would like to work on it? Yes, please do so, but I don't think we have to wait until end of this year. Mr. Chairman, I don't think there will be much time left. By the end of this year, there would just be slightly a year's time for us to finish the work. We cannot finish the relevant work. Ms. Chen, maybe I didn't make myself clear. You are clear. I think you are anxious. No, I'm not. For the Standard Working Hours Committee, we have said that by the end of next week, we would have completed our consultation exercise. We will see if we can provide some initial outcome to the Manpower panel in September, October. We won't be waiting until end of the year before we report on the matter. Ms. Chen Yun-han, well, my view is that it's all right for you to carry out your work. As to the end result, we all have the answer in our mind. We want to force the administration to complete the task before the end of the session. Are you going to see are you going to see to it that something similar to the minimum wage will be done? I don't want you to procrastinate. I think I can anticipate what sort of outcome will be obtained. I don't think you need to use the so-called consultation to drag your feet. Yes, it is a new issue. You are right to take the matter seriously. The administration, the electrical, and the community have already studied the matter. It isn't that we started from scratch. Are you really sincere in trying to implement it? The sea has been in the post for so long. How come they're still dragging your feet? Now, for the electrical, for the term 2004 to 2008, at that time, the administration didn't want to have an interim review for the minimum wage, and then we forced it to be done. And so in the year 2008, we got it. So first of all, it isn't something new. Yes, we are always aware of the divergent views, and the relevant sectors have had studies on the matter and surveys as well. So has the administration. So don't just use the excuse of consultation to drag the matter. This is not the discussion topic for today's meeting. We've been told that they will come back in September, October. Of course, it is up to the chair of the new session to make a decision, but we really hope that the new chair will also have the interim report being discussed at the first panel meeting. I think this is a clear request from the panel today. Mr. Poon. Yes, I was about to follow up on Chen Yun-han's request. She would like it to be done quickly. A date has been given. September, October, that will mean another 60 days. Please, I think you have just clarified that for the first meeting of the panel of the electrical, we would like to get the interim report. Yes, probably towards the end of September, even middle of September, we're holding our first meeting. They have given September as a possible date, so we won't be having it in October. Ms. Chen, thank you for bearing with me. I won't take September as an answer. It's quite unsatisfactory. This isn't something new. We can have a number of assumptions. I think please give us a timetable. I think we need to work on the pre-legislation work, the preparatory work. Well, I think the way as it develops, I don't think they're going to honor the pledge. Now, Ms. Chen wants something more than just a report. That is, she would like to have a clear roadmap and timetable. Yes, we're going to relate Ms. Chen's request to the Standard Working Hours Committee. It isn't just for the Standard Working Hours Committee. The administration stance would also be important. So let's have a discussion again when you come back in September, October. Now we'll be talking about the review on the effectiveness of the employment in one stop in Tin Shui Wai. Paper CB bracket 2 2019/13 to 14 bracket 01. There's also a background brief from the Secretariat.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, in 2011, we introduced this pilot program on the employment in one-stop EOS in Tin Shui Wai. It's located at Tin Ching Amenity and Community Building at Tin Ching Estate. That's in response to the proposal by various stakeholders in providing job seekers employment and retraining services, and also ERB service center was set up in the same building, and we would be looking at able-bodied and also CSSA recipients, and also people with difficulties finding a job. And given the fact that it's an EOS, the ERB also set up on the third floor of the same building an ERB service center. And in October 2011, we also reported on the progress of the EOS to the Manpower panel. And after accumulating or gaining some experience in the first 2 years of operation, we'd like to come back to report to you on the progress. Well, at the EOS, there are two main services. First, for job seekers, they'll be able to make use of the same facilities available at other job centers. And during the first 2 years, we managed to record a total of some 129,000 people visiting our center. And we have managed to help some 400 employers in organizing some 132 job fairs, and some 9,000 job seekers were attracted to the job fairs. And second is an enhanced employment support services. For example, they can make use of our facilities to assess their ability in finding jobs, and also social workers stationed at the center will also help the job seekers by providing case management service and also customized employment support services. And some 1,000 plus job seekers were provided with this service, and some 95% of them were referred to us by the SWD, and they were able-bodied, and they've been unemployed, and most of them have been on CSSA for over 5 years, and their education attainment was below S3. And some 57.9% of them managed to find jobs after getting the service from the EOS. It shows that the service has been able to meet these job seekers' needs in overcoming some obstacles in finding jobs, and some 26.3% managed to find full-time jobs, and out of them, some 52.5% have now been transferred from unemployment CSSA to underemployment or low income assistance. So it shows that it has been very helpful, and in conclusion, we believe that the EOS has been able to achieve its desired objective, and we have managed to help many job seekers to return to the job market. And according to our survey with the users of the service, most of them are very happy or relatively happy with the facilities available. With regard to case management service, they've given us some positive feedback. But then during the past 2 years, Hong Kong's economy has been doing relatively well, and for job seekers hoping to find jobs, it's relatively easy for them to find a job. That's why for those who have volunteered to join our case management service, the response has not been very enthusiastic. Yes, despite the fact that we have seen positive outcome from the 2 years of experience, and it's been pretty effective, but then it's not appropriate for us to come to any early conclusion. That's why our suggestion is that for the EOS at Tin Shui Wai, it should be run for another 2 years on a pilot basis, so that we'll be able to provide more in-depth service to different types of job seekers, for example, ethnic minorities, new arrivals, and so on, hoping that we will continue to monitor the effectiveness of the center before we determine on the way forward. Thank you. All right, the floor is now open to members' questions, 5 minutes each. I can see that Leung Chi Chang, Poon Siu Ping have raised their hands first, Leung Chi Chang, and then Ann Chiang. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the one-stop service, well, in Tin Shui Wai, I paid a visit to the center, and I think that the design of the center and also the effectiveness has been pretty good. So once you enter the center, you don't have to worry about finding a job, counseling, and also employment support service. All those are available. And if you look at the statistics, I think I have 2 observations. Number one, the location is relatively remote, and for many residents in Yuen Long, they approach us and they said that they'd like to find a job, and when we told them that they could go to this center to seek help, and they said that it's not easy to find where it is. So you will need to step up publicity so that people will find it easier to locate where it is. So if you look at these statistics, actually for people going there on their own volition to seek help, well, compared to those who have been referred to this center, the number is on the low side. That's why I think you will have to step up your efforts in order to attract more people to use your service. Number two, Well, judging from the figures, I find some problems indeed. Well, for people seeking help, if you look at their age profile, most of them are over the age of 40, and in terms of their academic attainment, it's on the low side, either it's a P6 or junior secondary level. So I'd like to know a bit more. Well, after getting your service, for those who have been able to really join the job market, what's the proportion or percentage? Well, I've browsed the figures, and the percentage is not very high. And in the process, you also organize quite a large number of job fairs, and many people attend the job fairs, and you said that there were 132 job fairs, attracting some 9,101 job seekers. So comparatively speaking, there were less than 100 job seekers per job fair. So it's not a very high turnout. So in Shui Wai, according to my experience, they used to attract 1,000, 2,000 job seekers. So is it that the economy was doing pretty well? That's why there weren't that many job seekers in need of finding a job. So can you answer those two questions first? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leung. Initially, when we identified Shui Wai as the pilot EOS program, well, as you can see, if you look at the Shui Wai Tin Ching Estate, the location is pretty convenient because it's very near the LRT station, and in the vicinity there are also many West Rail routes and bus routes. So when they travel from Tuen Mun to this location, it's pretty convenient, and it's also very spacious, more than 1,000 square meters. But then we agree that we will have to step up publicity. That's why we've been using flyers, and also at LRT, West Rail, and also bus stops. We've put up some light boxes, advertisements, and also we also have a dedicated webpage on this EOS in Shui Wai. We also attach a lot of importance to publicizing it at different locations. We would also extensively distribute leaflets to schools and organizations in different districts. We also encourage school and students to pay visits to them. During the past 2 years, some 40 such visits were arranged. Over 700 people have been there. So, Mr. Leung, district councils and other bodies, if you're interested, we can also arrange for tours or visits to this center, and residents can always they should also be told that they can make use of LRT buses and also West Rail to come to our center. And if you look at the figures, in fact, the number of visits is not low at all, because during the past 2 years, well, over 129,000 or close to 130,000 people have visited the center, so it's not low at all. As for those over 40, most of them have an academic attainment below S3. That's precisely the group of people who would not have a lot of access to newspapers and job vacancy advertisements and so on, and that's why they would be in greater need of our service. And we do encourage people of different academic attainment and age profile to come to our center. And of course, we also have a lot of e-service, for example, online service, phone advice, and so on. And therefore, most job seekers do not have to come personally to the center to seek help. Next, Ann Chiang, please. Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'd like to know this. Within the community, we do have this problem. That is, we do have adults who are homebound, and it's not just adults. There are many who are elders. So for this one-stop service, would it be able to help these people who are very reclusive? So they might not be ready to come forward for help. So will we be able to reach out to them instead? That's the first question. And second, at the district level, in many public housing estates, there are women who are willing to take up part-time jobs, but then they don't want to be too far away from their homes because there are children that have to be taken care of. So will you be able to come up with this service targeting women or homemakers so that they can take up part-time jobs within their neighborhood, so that they can have people doing babysitting for them, or if they are elders who might need somebody to keep an eye on them, and at the same time they can also be babysitters. And if that can be done, then that would also help unleash some manpower into the market, because we do have shortage of labor in certain sectors, so that might help if you're able to do it. Yes, Mr. Ng. All right, I'll make a brief response and then the SWD can supplement. Well, for the EOS, it's like other employment service center. So we do have part-time jobs vacancies available, and on our website we also have a section on that. Yes, we would not specify that these jobs are custom-made for women, but of course, as you said, if they want to be babysitters, yes, we also have such vacancies available, and if they come to us, or the ELB would also provide such training at their training centers, so that after going through training, people or women can become babysitters or help new mothers to take care of their babies during the first months. Yes? Well, the ELB offers different courses that are suitable for women, and in fact, you might have an idea as to this home helper service. In fact, that's also a referral platform for home helpers, and in 2009 we changed the name so that for all the part-time jobs that are related to domestic services, they were integrated into one, and it's very suitable for women. And in fact, if you look at the number of people who have been registered, almost all of them are women. And we also have training centers which would also serve as referral centers, so that some trainees can also be referred to different jobs. And under our existing centers, we also refer people to be elderly carers, and also child carers, and so on. So we've been publicizing our service, and we have also got this rather extensive referral network, and we've been looking at the needs of women. For example, they might be homemakers, and when they were educated, they might not have taken full-time courses, or when they undergo our training, they might not be able to take up full-time training courses. So what's the name of that? It's called a Smart Living. And if you look at the number of vacancies that we receive every year, about we have close to 50,000 such vacancies. And for those who have been registered with our platform, we have about 16 to 20,000. So the figures do fluctuate. And basically, I think there is a general understanding of this platform, so that they can register with us, and then they'll be able to find home helpers or domestic helpers or part-time maids. So it's called Smart Living Platforms, and we have 11 such centers, and these people can look at their neighborhood, and then they can identify a center nearby for referral service, because we do understand that most employers and employees would try to find a job nearby their homes.
But then there is a problem that the demand and supply are found in different districts. There is a strong demand on the Hong Kong island, so there is a problem of matching. Maybe we need to get something in the mid-levels. Yes, the problem can be resolved if we are to build proper housing there. Mr. Poon, with a vibrant labor market, I think it should help. It is said that 95% of the participants are referral cases from the SWD, especially those who are able-bodied CSSA recipients. Very few are coming on a voluntary basis. I understand that 1,500 came, but then only 336 got a job. In other words, the success rate was only 30%. So it isn't that satisfactory. I want to know about the reason. Are there ways to improve the situation? That's my first question. Second question is about the fairs, the job fairs. Over 30 such fairs have been organized, and then 9,101 persons came. So for the 132 fairs organized, I want to know how many of them have successfully got a job and about the types of jobs involved. Two questions here. Thank you, Mr. Poon, for your questions. Indeed, for us to set up the employment in one stop is to have a better liaison with the SWD. We try to see if we can assist those who are looking for jobs. Well, undoubtedly, most of the clients would be those referred by the SWD. Now, we've got a good labor market situation, and so fewer were coming on a voluntary basis. We'll have it for another 2 years. We'll try to see if we can enhance the participation rate of those who come voluntarily. So in coming year or two, we'll continue to look to it, attend to it. As to the case of the job searches of the CSSA recipients, we're talking about full-time jobs. The rate is 26.3%. I think, relatively speaking, it is good because 70% of them have an education standard of below S3, and 70% have been on CSSA for 5 years, and some have been so for 10 years. For the job skills and their motivation to get a job and their confidence in attending an interview, all are on the low side. So first of all, we would like to identify them, and we hope that we can have them leaving the CSSA safety net. In this way, we can ease the burden of the administration. We can also help them to become self-reliant, and it will be a great help to their families. So we're happy with the result. You said they were the figures for the full-time jobs. What about the part-timers? Maybe you should give us the information as well. Altogether, 974 found a job, 419 full-time jobs. In other words, 555 part-time jobs. So slightly more than half are part-timers. As to the job fairs, well, the job fairs are mainly there to provide a platform. In other words, we have identified certain employers, and they would like to arrange interviews and briefings at the employment in one stop in Shui, and we hope that on the spot there can be job interviews for the job seekers. But sometimes we don't actually get the offer on the spot. Usually there would be a need to follow up, either by phone or in some other way. Not everybody will give us the information as to the outcome of the job interview, so we're not able to get the full picture. Mr. Poon? Well, I think in theory they would not inform you even if they succeed in getting a job after the interview. Well, we all understand that everybody is busy in Hong Kong. Of course, we hope that they can tell us about the result of the job interview, but usually they won't. It is only when they have failed and then they have come back to us again, then we know. What about employers? For those who have joined you at the platform, can you not ask them to tell you about the total number of employees recruited at the job fair? Yes, we also hope that employers can tell us about the success rate. But then there's a practical difficulty. As you know that employers have difficulties in getting new recruits, so they resort to different channels. And for the HRMs responsible for the task at the job fairs, if you want to find out who has been employed, who has been recruited through the job fair, then it will be difficult to get the information. For the employment in one stop, we have got 2 per week, and many people would come every time, so it will have a heavy claim on our human resources to follow up on such matters. Next, Mr. Kwok. For employment in one stop, I think you have got the LD, SWD, and the ERB being pulled together. You want to focus the information there. You want to centralize the resources there so as to help the job seekers. I think it's good. It's been going on for 2 years, and we have got the figures and indicators. I think we're all concerned about the performance. Mention has been made that come next year, as far as the case management is concerned, out of the 1,600 receiving such a service, 1,000 of them are of a low education standards. So please ask the employers whether they want to get middle-aged job seekers and whether they can provide job types that can suit the desired working hours of the job seekers. And then 2 years. 17,531 referrals have been made. Now, of course, you have told us that perhaps the employers have recruited new staff from other sources, so you're not quite sure. But I think only 3,600 have got a job out of the 17,000 referrals. Does it mean that just 20% of 25% of them were able to get a job? Does it mean that we have to doubt whether the employers are really sincere in getting a new recruit? The vacancy rate is quite high, so I think the matching rate is rather low. Another question is, now for the job seekers, yes, you said that over 100,000 have come to visit your center. And I want to know about the address of the job seekers. Do you have an analysis? Mention has been made that for employment in one stop, it has been proved to be successful. Maybe job seekers from other districts have also come to try their luck, but then maybe the jobs are all available in Tin Shui Wai only. So for job seekers coming all the way from Tung Chung or Kwai Chung may not be interested. So if you have the figures, then you will find out that a lot have come from other districts, and then maybe you can try to replicate the model in other districts. Mr. Ng, do we intend to extend it to other districts? Thank you, Mr. Kwok, for your question. Yes, we understand that our target clients are those who are middle-aged and of a lower educational standard, in particular those referred from the or by the SWD. So we try to get unskilled jobs, retail, catering jobs. We hope that such jobs will be offered, and then it will be easier to have successful matching. And then we would also like to tie in with the work of the LD so as to make sure that we can have good matching. For the employment in one stop, we have got a scheme to encourage employment of the middle-aged. And over 500 have been recruited as a result. It is said that 3,000 only. Would that be too low a success rate? Well, such is the number of the successful cases after referral. Over 90% of the cases are such that referral is not needed, and then the job seekers just attend an interview. And then they won't tell us whether they succeed or not. So 3,000 have been referred by us, so we are more accurate about that figure. Well, for the job seekers approaching us, in the first year, 90% of them came from Shui. 13,531. Have they all been referred by you? Yes, we have referred many clients, say by telephone, etc. But then not all of them would come back. Not all of them would revert to us and tell us about the result. You have got lots of terms here. So you have got referral, registration, visitors, etc., etc. Referrals, what do you mean? Now, if an employer or if an employee informs us, then we know. But then sometimes you just refer a case and then you are aware of it, and then that will be categorized as such. Well, referral, it means that they have used our service. We try to arrange for a job interview, we liaise with the employer, and then we follow up on the outcome. So it's a matter of successful referrals. Now, of course, employers very much like to get new staff members. They don't always have to work through us. Sometimes people don't like to tell others that they have been referred by the LD because it may appear that they are not smart enough. So usually we'll give counseling advice, and then they will just go out to get a job themselves. Ms. Chen Yun Han. Yes, it's easy to get a job currently in the labor market, but then in your table, if you are aged 50 or above, then it becomes more difficult, and then assistance from the department will be needed. So it seems that they have to rely on you more. When you answered Leung Chi Cheng's question, Mr. Leung asked this question: would you agree that the center is too far away, the location is too remote? Can you not sort of consider this matter? There are job seekers who are not good at getting a job. SWD referred to 90% of the cases. Few came voluntarily. So would you reconsider the question of the location of the center? Thank you, Ms. Chen. 5% are voluntary participants. We have 129,000 who have come to use our service. So it isn't a matter of whether it is convenient as a center. Sometimes we may be meeting them once or twice a month, and then the conversation may last for an hour or half an hour. We try to give more advice to them. In fact, with the buoyant labor market, some of the job seekers have find it too troublesome.
Well, some may say that the center at Tin Ching Estate in Tin Shui Wai might be pretty remote, but then if you look at the 600,000 people in Tin Shui Wai, some 200,000 of them live in Tin Shui Wai, and for people on CSSA, well, most of them, over half of them, live in Tin Shui Wai North, and therefore Tin Ching Estate is right between the northern and southern part of Tin Shui Wai, is pretty conveniently located, in particular the target service users. And as I just said, is within 5 minutes walking distance from bus routes and also feeder bus service and also LRT and West Rail. We understand that for people living in downtown area of Yuen Long, they might not know how to come to us, and therefore we've been stepping up publicity and we've been arranging visit activities and we've been putting up banners so that they would understand that it's very convenient to go to Tin Ching Community Center by public transport, so that for people living in Tin Shui Wai and other areas, they will use our service more. Yes, we welcome this kind of center, but then if you look at the figures and also the way it operates, if you still insist that the center should be located in Tin Shui Wai and is appropriate, then I would beg to differ. Well, I'm not there all the time, but then I've been there on some occasions, and it's difficult to say which part of Tin Shui Wai is the most convenient location. But then, even if it's located at its current location, you might wish to conduct a questionnaire survey to find out if people are aware of where it is. Alright, according to what you said, you think that the location is okay, but then objectively, I'd say that people who need to find a job, or they would make use of their own connections instead of relying on your service. Well, a couple of years ago, I've been to the UK, and if you look at their employment service centers, they are located very close to one another. Alright, in Tin Shui Wai, if you have one stop, and Tin Shui Wai has a very large area, and when compared to Yuen Long, if you look at the dense population in Yuen Long, well, I think Tin Shui Wai is not that densely populated. And therefore, I kind of think that can you come up with an alternative approach? So can you ask people whether they are aware of where it is located? Have you done that sort of survey? So have you done that kind of survey to find out if people are aware of where the center is? Well, we would normally ask them if they are happy with our service. Given the fact that many members are concerned about whether people know where it is, then we can only promise that we will do more publicity to let people know where it is. But then please understand that for the EOS service, we'll be looking at whether it should continue, because it needs a sizable area, because we're talking about more than 1,000 square meters. Because if you talk about similar centers of similar size, then it's difficult to identify another premises with similar size. So we'll see if we can downsize it by accommodating or housing fewer facilities, because if they can be smaller, then we might be able to find more locations for the purpose. And of course, the first thing to do is to step up publicity so that more people will be aware of where it is. Mr. Ng. Yes, in Hong Kong, our economy is doing pretty well. But then, from time to time, we do heard that many who are over 50 do not have many choices. So you will have to find out whether or not people are not using the service because of its remote location or other reasons. So I've been insisting on what I said. You will have to ask people whether they are aware of where it is, and whether or not you will have to change your modus operandi in order to make it more attractive. So I don't think it's very meaningful for us to read the figures alone. So it's just a point that I like to make. I don't need him to reply. You should not be sitting back and waiting for people to come to you. You should reach out to them. Next, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the EOS and its location in Tin Shui Wai, I think the initial thinking is that they'd like to increase the chance of providing more job matching service in Tin Shui Wai. So I'd like to know, have you got any data to find out if it's been effective, how many jobs have been offered, and also have you been able to lower the unemployment rate in Tin Shui Wai? And just now, some members have also said that at the district level, many people would also like to get such support service. You've said that if you have to go out to other districts to work from Tin Shui Wai, the traveling expenses would be very high. But how about people coming into Tin Shui Wai for work? So is it that you're trying to help people living in Tin Shui Wai alone, while people living in other districts might not be able to receive the same level of assistance. And there are many job types that have difficulty getting workers, in particular in the catering industry. Well, I think most of the jobs being offered are from the catering sector and the retail sector. I think across the territory, there are many such jobs available, not just Tin Shui Wai. So apparently, if you're only able to help people working in Tin Shui Wai, then other districts will not be able to benefit. Mr. Ng? Yes, with regard to EOS, the reason why we have located or we have set up the center in Tin Shui Wai, that's because amongst the 18 districts, Tin Shui Wai has the highest unemployment rate and the largest number of people who are unemployed. And over the past 2 years, if you look at the referral cases, we are talking about over 3,500, and also for the successful cases under the case management cases, we have got over 900 who have been able to find jobs by using the service. So to a certain extent, we've been able to meet the needs of those in need of finding a job. And yes, we have 12 centers, including this EOS center, and hopefully we can set up the 13th employment service centers in Tung Chung, and we also have dedicated employment centers for the catering sector and other sectors. And in fact, we also have a mobile app where people can download the information on their smartphone devices and so on. And vacancies are also available online. And therefore, for people in need of in-depth case management support, they can come to us. And for people who are able to make use of the apps, they can also go to the 12 employment centers. And for those who are in need of the on-the-spot interview centers, they can also go to the 2 centers. And then for people who are able to use their smartphones and so on, then they will be able to use our apps around the clock and make use of the services available. As to whether or not we should set up more EOS centers in other districts, we will have to look at the situation in the next 2 years on the case management approach, whether it's effective in the next 2 years, so that we hope that in the next 2 years we'll be able to gain more experience and decide on the way forward. All right, across the territory, the unemployment rate is about 3%. And then in Tin Shui Wai, what's the unemployment rate like? And after introducing this EOS service, to what extent have you been able to lower the unemployment rate in Tin Shui Wai? So you talk about some 900. So what's the percentage? Well, I have to emphasize that the figures that I mentioned went through our job referral service and also case management system. And in fact, the most important thing is 90% of those jobs are available in a public website. So for people who are more able to find jobs on their own, then they do not need our service. And some employers would also prefer the job seekers to call them up personally, so that they will be able to find out if they have the incentive to find jobs. And therefore, for those who have to find jobs through us, then they do not have a lot of confidence or they need more help. So it's difficult to say whether or not the figure is high or low, or whether or not it's been successful or not. And then in 2013, the unemployment rate throughout the territory is 3.4%. That's the average figure. And then in Yuen Long is 4.2%. And you don't have the latest figure. So that's 2013. And then for 2014, that would only be available later. I think we need the figures for 2014. But then basically, I think most of those who need the service would be the CSSA recipients. So even for people who find jobs, they might not have done so through their service. Next, Mr. Lang Kwok Hong. Chairman, when we heard government figures, all right, if you look at the underemployment, then it would be a lot higher than 3%. In fact, large numbers of people have been moved into this district. So you've created the problem by yourself. So you're talking about workers who do not have much bargaining power. So the way you move them around, in fact, you are creating this situation of unemployment. So it's like a housewife. All right, if I'm making very little money, and if I have to work at the expense of my children, then of course I would not be doing so. So that's your own creation. So we've been asking you, we've been telling you that you should not be moving people or moving large numbers of poor people into a district where there are no jobs available. Then costs will go up. Then they would naturally find jobs on their own unless you provide them with subsidies, or if they're able to find jobs within the neighborhood. If no jobs are available because they are on CSSA and they've been forced to come to you, all right, that would give you a figure. So you're just manipulating the figures. In fact, nothing has been done about it because we are talking about a city of sadness. Indeed, Carrie Lam, well, when she was less busy, she would be prepared to go and take a look. So that's the situation, and I think the situation is very simple. If you like to find jobs within the same community, then you cannot just rely on the business sector. You will have to create the jobs on your own. For example, home helpers, all right, they can serve or work within their own community. All right, if you just pay $19 and ask people to be babysitters or to help at the care centers and so on, if it's just an hourly pay of $19, of course it's not attractive. So through the administration, if something can be done to help the local people because of the lack of welfare or the lack of certain services, and as a result of that, some housewives' livelihood or their children might be improved, that's your job. That's your duty. Then you will have to make sure that they'll be able to find jobs within the same community. Well, Madam Chen Yun-han referred to the situation in the UK. Of course, it's different. But then we also have our own centers. We have 13, and the districts themselves have the duty of improving the welfare within the same district. But then, of course, if the district council is not doing its job, then of course this cannot be achieved. So my question is very simple. All right, you've suppressed the statutory minimum wage, and as a result, nobody has the incentive to come out to work. And if you can increase that slightly higher, or if you can set up or introduce the standard working hours, if it's set at a reasonable level, then employers will not be able to exploit the workers any further. Then more people will be encouraged to come out to work. Or else I don't see how you can resolve this problem, because there is a mismatch. That's because of the distribution of a population, and then for the haves and the have-nots, the gap is too wide. Or how can you expect a housewife living in Tin Shui Wai to spend several dozen dollars a day to come to another district to work? So who would be bothered? No, none of them. So the only comment that I can make is this is a classic way of government cooking up the figures. So if you have a problem in a particular district, then I'll just create this, hoping that I can get some figures to resolve the problem. So, all right, yeah, you say that some 90% of them are finding jobs on their own. If that's the conclusion, then why bother to do it for the 10%? It's a waste of time. It's a waste of space. And you said that for a 1,000 square meter center is too large. Where can you find similar space elsewhere? So why don't you just use it as a childcare center? So, Chairman, I'm not interested in discussing this because it's like playing games with them. And if you're able to introduce standard working hours, and also if you're able to increase statutory minimum wage, I think that those will help. All right?
9月一返嚟呢，
For standard working hours, when we come back in September, the first thing that we deal with will be that one. The job seekers would just sit idle at home. If employers think that it is not worth the while to pay $30 or $33 an hour to get somebody to do the job, then so be it. I think they should just abolish what they are doing. Dr. KWOK Wai-keung. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this US, there are two parts to it. First of all, to help the SWD to support the CSSA. And it seems that for 2 years we have got 129,000 attendees. But then just 3,652 got a job. So it is a poor performance in terms of cost effectiveness. Then only 1,592 got a job. It is on the low side. So either you know it very well that there's no way you can change the picture. It is all because of the policies. Say, for example, lack of child care service. For Shui Wai, I think it is major blunder in terms of town planning. So is it because of that, and so the success rate is only 26% only for the able-bodied CSSA recipients? Now the employment rate is so high. Do you still have to spend so much money and use so many resources to set up such a center? Since the success rate is so low, for the able-bodied non-CSSA recipients, I think they don't need it. So I want to know about the cost of running this place. I think he would like to know about the cost effectiveness of the service. Let me talk about the work of the US and the job centers. We want to give the service in the fastest way, and we want to give the updated information to the job seekers so that they can get the jobs themselves. The more capable ones are usually able to get it, but without us, well, where can they get the vacancies information? And then as set out in the paper, we have also got other ancillary facilities. That's why we have got 129,000 visiting our center. They use the terminals to get information. They use our computers to type out letters, and they learn job skills. And we have also got seminars for new arrivals and the ethnic minorities, telling them about the latest position in the labor market. They may not be working through us to get a job, but then they can get advice from our counselors. Say, for example, if they want to change their jobs. My time is running out, so please tell us about the establishment of the staff at the US. And what about the PE every year? For the US, we've got 21 staff members from the LD. For the yearly operational expenditure for the year 2014-15, our estimated expenditure will be $9.6 million, almost $10 million. This taxpayers' money. It is not a small sum. Now you say that you are giving help to so many people, but what about those who are in a very urgent need of help? The physically disabled, experimental patients, people with learning difficulties. Well, I think there's another issue. That's about selective placement. So what about selective placement? Do you provide selective placement service for the disabled here? We have got one in Chunwan. So even if somebody has got a problem in Shui Wai, they can't get it here. For the experimental patients or chronically ill individuals from such categories have also approached our job centers for help. We do serve them. Anybody requiring more in-depth and follow-up service, it may be more suitable to provide the service at the selective placement unit. So 2 years, $10 million. And the rate is only 26%. Just a few hundred were given assistance. It's not fair to make such a remark. Let me rephrase our question. In fact, it is already my turn. So Dr. KK Kwok would like to know about the cost effectiveness. Now, for the 21 staff members, you have to sort of classify them. How many of them are working for the job referrals of the CSSA recipients? How many of them would serve the general participants, like making a registration and calling up an employer? I think we don't know about the success rate because the job seekers would go about it themselves. But then it's still a matter of service. We don't provide in-depth service. It is just sort of some very initial and general service. So allow me to repackage Dr. Kwok's question. Among the 21 staff members that you deployed there, how many of them are involved in the in-depth in-depth service? The success rate is disappointing. 1,592 for 2 years. And then only 419 got full-time jobs. We were told there were about 500 working part-time. Why is it so? Is it because they have worked part-time a few days, and so they want to be fair, they don't want to lump the figures together? So does it mean that this is the reason as to why the rate is so low? My understanding is that in the past, SWDs did ask the NGOs to do the same. I haven't compared the placement rates. I don't think it will be on the high side as well. Yes, I'm against contracting out any service, but still you have to talk about cost effectiveness. So can you not sort of answer the questions? The 7 minutes should be counted towards my slot. Dr. Kwok talked about 26%. That's about case management. So the CSSA recipients, so over 400 have left the CSSA safety net. And for those who have been on CSSA for 5 years, 10 years, then it is quite encouraging. For the general participants, some of them will require in-depth help. We have got the middle-aged, we have got the work trial, and others also receive help to have the work incentive transportation scheme or subsidy. There are others who don't know much about job skills or etc. They have also been served by us. How many are involved in case management? I don't want to argue about the usage of terms, but among the 21 staff members that you have got, how many of them are responsible for case management? Well, for case management, we have got on-site social workers from the NGOs who provide counseling, and they've got 10 on-site social workers. So social workers from NGOs working side by side with the 21 LD staff members. Well, to be fair, for case management, actually it's being carried out by the on-site social workers. Probably they will approach you for information, but there are 10 on-site social workers, and then 300 plus or 400 got full-time jobs. So let's draw our own conclusion as to whether it is good enough. So it is a very sort of the investment is huge. You may very well say that it is difficult to complete the task, but we are not sure of the extent of the difficulties. But I think we can see for ourselves about the effectiveness of the scheme, and then we can come to our own conclusion. I myself doubt very much the effectiveness of such a scheme. One social worker dealing with 40 plus successful cases, just 3 or 4 per month, so it is not worth the money. And then what about the ethnic minorities? You really have to work more in that regard. The Manpower panel as well as the subcommittee on poverty have also showed our concern about the language barrier in your service. Next, Albert Ho, KWOK Wai-keung, we may not have time to give you the second round. So let him answer, and then Albert Ho, Mr. Lee. I think it is much more than that. There are full-time jobs and part-time jobs. And then for the younger job seekers, they will resume their schooling. So it is also an indicator of successful counseling. Job placement is not the sole aim. We've got social workers looking at the personality, family issues, and counseling. We'll try to see if they want to resume schooling again. Sometimes we'll try to help them to improve their family relationship. So we can't simply take the figure of 400. I think among the 1,000 or so, many of them have seen improvements. You can't just look at the figures. If you're interested, I think you may want to visit the US, and then you can look at the assistant. You can see for yourselves how they receive the service from us. For non-CSSA cases, 39 out of the 46 approaching us for help, they got full-time jobs. Even for the difficult cases, they might be autistic cases or they're hidden youth, etc. They are able to come out to get a job. So when you look at such extreme cases, the situation is very different from those who get jobs themselves. Ethnic minorities, I won't pursue the line here, but it is important. Yes, we'll follow this up. Albert Ho, of course, the figures aren't the only indicators for us to judge the cost effectiveness of the scheme, but still they are important unless we go there on a daily basis. Otherwise, we have to rely on the figures to tell whether it is successful or not. Of course, we have to ask you questions, but after reading the figures, the US has been set up in Shui because it is a remote area, and then they have a relatively higher unemployment rate. Many of them are of a low education standard. They are new arrivals. They are CSSA households. So the choice of the location was deliberate. I think it is right. You're right. But have you ever considered the unemployment rate for Shui on its own? Have you got it? No. We have got Yuen Long. We have got the unemployment rates for the 18 districts. Last year it was 3.4 currently. Yuen Long has got more than 4, so the highest among all the 18 districts. For the vacancy rate, again, I see that you got 28,000 vacancies at the job fairs, but then only 3,000 or so got recruited. So the difference is huge. So there's a mismatch. So the mismatch is the problem.
This is something that we have to face up to. So have you conducted any studies? I'm not just talking about the success cases. I would also like to know more about the failure cases. All right, you've met them, you've provided them with advice and so on. So why have they not been able to find a job in the end? So have you conducted any analysis? I think that's also very important. Yes, Mr. Ng. First, on the first part, I have to clarify that for the 3,000 plus success cases, they are the difficult cases, so to speak. So they will have to be referred by us to the employers, but then at the job fairs, overwhelming majority of the jobs have been matched. Well, after we have identified the 9,000 plus job seekers, they went to the job interviews themselves, and after they have got the jobs, they do not have to come back to us to let us know. And then for the case management cases, we attach a lot of importance to them because these are the so-called difficult cases. So we've been following through with them. So we've been following up with them for more than a year. We have to find out why they have not been able to find the jobs. If it's because of the lack of job interviewing skills or because of their family circumstances, for example, if they're single parents and so on. So we'll see if we can help, for example, by offering childcare services to them and so on. So have you conducted any studies so that you can have a breakdown of those who have not been able to find the jobs? Obviously, there are a lot of vacancies available, and of course, some have to do with the geographical location. I understand that there are many employers in different parts of the territory who have not been able to find workers. For example, if it's a cleansing job or or dishwashers, all right, if the job is in Tin Shui Wai, then obviously that would be taken up. But then if you ask them to spend high traveling expenses and come out to the urban area to take up the job, then they would be reluctant to do so. So what's the scale of the problem then? Well, out of the 6,800 case management cases, well, we can see that for those taking part in the case management figures, some 42% or 708 have not been able to find jobs after we have analyzed their cases. Well, after more than 12 months, we have not been able to help them find a job. The main reason is low academic attainment. Low academic attainment, yes, over 30% were below or were at P6 or below, and therefore after a long while, they have not been in contact with anything in writing. But then many of the jobs do not require any academic attainment at all. Well, if you ask Tommy Cheung, he'll tell you that there are many dishwashing jobs who have not been filled, filled. And also, if you look at their past work experience, is already outdated. In particular, for those long-time CSSA recipients, they have been detached from society, and some of them have either been reluctant in taking up retraining courses or whatever. And also for those who have been unemployed for a long time, some 500 of them out of the 700 or 34% have been on CSSA for more than 10 years, and there are some 500 plus, some 38% have been on CSSA for more than 5 years. And if you ask them to rejoin the labor market, that will be somewhat difficult. That's why, that's the main reason why they have not been able to find jobs. And of course, we will have to look at their circumstances in offering services to them. Well, some have difficulty in attending job interviews, and people might also find it difficult to take up jobs requiring people or requiring them to stand up for long hours. Yes, those might be some of the reasons. But then for the difficulty in Tin Shui Wai, I believe that's not the main reason. As Mr. Lang Kwok Hong said, Tin Shui Wai is very much the problem, a problem of wrong town planning. And only a very small number of people would be willing to take up those jobs, and therefore you can only provide more jobs through better planning. So that's the reason why you have to build government offices in these areas. That's because there is a high percentage of new arrivals or CSSA families, and therefore you can only resolve the problem by better town planning. Well, according to my recollection, 5 or 6 years ago, Carrie Lam said that in order to resolve the problem in Tin Shui Wai, she'd like to find a piece of land so that she can set up social enterprises. So one of the sites can be given to the housing society for the setting up of an elderly hotel or elderly village. Of course, I do have some reservation about this, but then if you are not asking the elders to stay in the hotels, well, it's not a hotel for the elders per se, it's a hotel for the elderly, for the visitors of the elders. Well, I have some reservation about the concept or the idea, but then at least we can start the discussion starting from the next Legislative session. I think the biggest problem is with the initial planning, because originally you have planned to do that, but then in the end that has not come to any fruition. I think you could have come up with an amusement park in Tin Shui Wai, and Choi Lan also said that you should have a gourmet village or gourmet center there. But then in the end, all these have not come to any fruition at all. Mr. Ng, I think different departments have been working very hard in the direction that Mr. Ho suggested in terms of job matching and so on. Jockey Club has set up and of course a betting center, and there is another center being set up by another NGO. So within the in that area, or within Tuen Mun or other areas, we'd like to create more jobs. And also in terms of the WITS, we hope that everybody will be eligible for WITS. So it all boils down to the lack of proper measures catering for their needs. All right, we've spent more than an hour on this, and if you want to have a more in-depth discussion on that, we can also ask the SWD to arrange for a visit so that we can go there and talk to the social workers on site, and then we will be able to find out more. All right, moving on to the next item. The Deputy Chairman will stay behind, so can you brief us on the next paper, and then the floor will be open to members' questions. Over to you. Yes, it's a paper on severance payment and long service payment ceilings. Well, under the current law, the cap is set at $22,500, and for the maximum amount is $390,000 for individual employees. And the purpose of setting the cap for SP and LSP is to offer adequate protection for the employees, and at the same time make sure that it's affordable to employers. And in laying off employees, well, the biggest amount would be SP and LSP, and if we were to adjust the amount upward, then we will also have to ensure that well, some individual employers might be SMEs, and if they have to lay off staff because of cessation of business or scaling down of operations, then that would only add to their financial burden. And from the CNS department, during the first quarter of the General Household Survey, for the average or median income is $13,000. That's the median monthly employment earning. When compared to the cap of $22,500, is already more than half of the median pay, so that should be able to cater for the majority of the employees. And if you look at the initial purpose of setting up or introducing the SP and the LSP, that's to ease the short-term financial pressure on the employees. That's why capping it at $22,500, and if they have worked for 2 years and if they are laid off, then they'll be able to get some $30,000 as SP, and if they are laid off after 5 years and then they'll get the LSP, then they'll be able to get some $50,000 or $75,000, and that should be able to help them ease the short-term pressure. So we don't propose to increase or up the ceilings for both for the time being. Thank you. We have Chen Kin Po, Poon Siu Peng, Chung Kwok Pan, and KK Kwok and Sin Chung Kai. Chen Kin Po. All right, the administration does not propose to increase the ceilings for the SP and the LSP because it's concerned about increasing the financial burden for employers who have to cease their business or scale down their operations. Well, some 98% of the enterprises in Hong Kong are SMEs, and of course the administration has to be careful. And you also said that for the ceiling, all right, for the median wage is now $13,000, and therefore $22,500 is more than enough. But then I think the paper has fallen short of analyzing the real situation. All right, your simple conclusion is that it's not necessary, but then it's not supported by figures. For example, last year, have you conducted any studies that is for the SMEs? How many of them have to offset SP or LSP with their MPF contribution, and on top of that, how much extra do they have to pay? And also, if you say that median wage is $13,000 and therefore $22,500 is already more than enough, but then how many people are already earning more than $22,500 already? And in terms of the loss incurred on the part of the employees, how much are we talking about? So you will have to let us know before making this decision. On what basis have you come to that conclusion? Yes, before they made the decision, 22,500 was set a long time ago. And Mr. Chan Kin-po, as you are aware, well, for the MPF contribution is already is already set at $30,000. So there is no way that you can offset everything. So even if you increase the 22,500, you will still not be as high as that being set for MPF, $30,000. In other words, there is no extra burden at all, because so for the 5% that has to be contributed by the employer, $30,000 is a lot higher than the 22,500. So even if you increase that ceiling, it should not affect the employers at all. Yes, the employers will have to report the figures, but it's not mandatory. But then for the 22,500 for people earning less than 22,500 is about 77%. In other words, overwhelming majority of the workers would be earning less than 22,500 at present. So we should be able to cover overwhelming majority of the employees. But then you're not talking about those being laid off. So you're just talking about 77% of the workers earning less than 22,500. That's the statistics. But then what Mr. Chan Kin-po was asking for were the figures or the number of people being laid off and paid SP or LSP. Well, for those who have been made redundant, they do not have to report the figures to us. And then, as you said, for the MPF contribution, the cap is now set at $30,000. But then the nature and the purpose of the MPF and the SP and LSP is very different. If that's the case, then you should scrap the offsetting arrangement. All right, you should have scrapped the offsetting arrangement. That's the long-standing stance of the administration. For the MPF is for retirement, and then for the SP and LSP, the main purpose is to ease the short-term financial pressure experienced by employees while they are laid off. Mr. Chan Kin-po, I don't think my question has been answered at all. They don't have the figures. So for people who have been laid off, or people who have been offered LSP, how many of them are earning or have been earning more than 22,500? They have no idea at all. But then, overall speaking, some 77% of the workers are earning less than 22,500. Yes, you may not have the power to get the figures, but then if you are serious about getting the full picture, then either you get it through a survey or whatever. I think that would also help us make the decision. So how about the number of redundancy cases processed by the Labor Department, and how about the bankruptcy and default of wages fund? Poon Siu Ping. Thank you, Chairman. I think my question is very similar to that asked by Mr. Chan Kin-po. But I'd like to follow up further on this. According to the administration, the MPF, the cap has been adjusted on 2 occasions, and that's been increased by some 50%. And you can elaborate further. Well, for the 22,500, how did you set it in the first place? Yes, it's stipulated in law, and it's a very rigid figure. And you just said that, back in those years, for people earning more than, 77% of the workers are earning less than 22,500. And then for the cases processed by the Labor Department, well, you should know that some workers are earning more than 22,500. Do you have the figure? So they will not be able to get up to what they deserve, and therefore, so they may not be able to get the full payment.
For the figure of 22,500, well, it has been adjusted. In June 1995, the figure was raised to 22,500. Is there a formula? Well, we have to note 2 points. First, revised last time in 1995. In other words, almost 20 years, and there hasn't been a change. What about the previous revision? For how much? And now for the last revision, it was done 20 years ago. Well, since 1995, there has been a number of revisions concerning the ceiling. The final figure is $390,000. No, it is not fair. We are talking about the figure of 22,500 rather than the maximum amount. Now, of course, if you work 2 years, you would never get to $390,000. The question is, the monthly wage cap is 22,500. For how many years had it been? Say, for example, $20,000 for a long period of time, and we want to know about the criteria adopted to revise the figure. Was it pegged to half of the median wage, or what? Or would it be double the median wage, or what? There must be something to base your figure on. It is quite a long story that took place a long time ago. In 1968, the Employment Ordinance was enacted, and the relevant income level was 1,500 or below for the non-manual workers. And then in 1987, it was raised to 11,500. In 1996, there was a change, and it was found that for SP and LSP, quite unlike holidays and other entitlements, previously worked service will also be taken into account, and therefore there should be a cap on the monthly wage, though the type of workers will not be relevant anymore. And so in 1987, it was 11,500. In 1995, 15,000, and then later on 22,500. Post 1995, it was found that for the SP as well as the LSP established later on, well, as I have said, it is meant to ease the short-term financial hardship upon loss of employment. But then for the LSP, originally the idea was that for older workers who have worked for a long period of time, they should be given some sort of compensation. At that time, we didn't have MPF. In 1995, we started to discuss the MPF bill, and it came into existence in year 2000, and we started to look at the relationship between the LSP and the MPF, and we found that the cap was 22,500, and we started to consider as to whether there was a need to revise it so frequently. It jumped from 15,000 to 22,500. Is there a formula? If there is a formula, then we should adopt it for ongoing revision. Between 1987 and 1995, we looked at the wage movements, and we suggested to change it from 15,000 to 22,500. So you can see that we haven't had any revision in 20 years. At the time, we didn't have the MPF. All the more because you have got the hedging. It has always been offset but you won't even do this. Next, Mr. Chong Kok Wai. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, the cap for MPF is 30,000. Not all of it has to be used to offset the LP or LSP or the SP. It will remain in the account of the employee. It is right for the administration not to change it, because from the economic data, there is a risk that the economy may have a downturn risk. And then there has been a fall in 40% concerning the retail-related data. So it may affect our fundamentals. And then it is said that Occupy Central will certainly take place that would affect our investment and our employment. So for the business environment of the SMEs in the future, certainly there will be an impact. It is right for the administration to stay put and not change it. So that's my personal experience. You are being very creative. You are now linking labor rights with Occupy Central. But as the chair, it is not right for me to give too many comments. Sin Chung Kai, having read the paper, then I must say that the administration is not scientific in approaching the matter. I think the mentality is simply that it is fine for the time being, so be it. You are not scientific. Had you been scientific, then you should have adopted a particular criteria, like linked with the minimum wage, the statutory minimum wage. It doesn't have to be based on that totally, but at least we can understand the percentage of the employees covered. You need to have something to base on. Of course, we have to look at the affordability. You can't simply say that you look in your drawer to see whether anything hasn't been touched upon for a period of time, so you want to take a look of it. So it should have been a formula-driven exercise. Have you ever considered this? Do you have such a formula? I think in the past it was based on wage movements, and it went from 15,000 to 22,000. So adopting the same basis, it should at least have been raised to $30,000 a month. Thank you, Mr. Sin, for your question. Now, for labor entitlements, labor rights, well, they've been increased for a number of times over the past 20-30 years. For employee compensation, for the compensation, etc., we do revise it once every 2 years, and is packed with the wage movements. For the LSP, as I have said, when we first introduced the LSP, we didn't have the MPF, so the LSP would take into account the number of years of service as well as the age, like 100% for those aged 40 years old, etc. So it is to give recognition to long service. Post 1995, when we started to discuss MPF, to a certain extent the LSP and the MPF are similar. That is, for every year worked, you will be recognized for your contribution. But for LSP, you don't need to contribute. Post 1995, for the relationship between the LSP and the MPF is rather tricky. We can't sort of have the same being treated, have the two treated the same. I think we need to look at the overall picture. We have to check whether we have to change the mechanism of the LSP. We believe that $22,500 per month and maximum of $390,000. I think in most cases the needs can be addressed, and we believe that it is feasible for both employers and employees. I don't think you have answered my question at all. Maybe you are very good at dodging questions. I think you understand it very well. We have the deposit protection scheme, $500,000. being picked as the level covering 80 to 90% of the clients. What about 22,500? To what extent can we be covered? 77%. So maybe you can sort of pick a level, 75%, 80%, etc. If the percentage falls below that benchmark, then you have to revise it. Shouldn't you have adopted such a logic? For MPF, it is 90%. That's why we have it at 30,000. But of course, it is no longer covering 90%. It should be more than 30,000. It should be $35,000. So are you going to have a target percentage of 90%, and do you have a formula? Mr. Chairman, I don't think we should be that rigid or mechanical. No. It's the LD that's not mechanical. You are criticizing others. I don't mind if you criticize me. What about the MPF? What about the FSTB? I've explained that the two sorts of entitlements are different. For employee compensation, we have a formula to look at the wage movements as well as the inflation rates so as to make adjustments. LSP and MPF, will they be offset with each other, etc.? I think everything should be considered instead of just singling out LSP and try to see if it should be enhanced. Well, sometimes you say that the MPF and the LSP should be handled separately, and then you say that the two should be put together. No, not at all, not confusing. Allow me to give a brief reply. When the LSP was first introduced, it was to help alleviate the short-term financial hardship upon loss of employment. But then we are saying that if somebody has worked for the same employer for a longer period of time, we should give recognition. And if somebody is approaching retirement, say for example 65 years old, even if they retire voluntarily, or if they have to leave the job on grounds of poor health, they should also be entitled to the LSP. So it's a matter of whether they should be entitled to a sum of money upon leaving the employer. So the nature is different from the MPF. So it has got more complicated. It is no longer merely for the sake of short-term financial alleviation. Sometimes you say that the two are related, sometimes you will say that they are not related. Tommy Chia. I just want to remind members that our SMEs and the minor enterprises are being hurt time and again. 30 years ago, I employed a staff member. I didn't know that there would be so many responsibilities and liabilities. In 30 years' time, you are now adding more and more to my burden. And can I go back to my clients who patronized me 30 years ago and paid me $1.20 for a dish of shrimp dumplings? So you're moving the goalposts all the time. And then to the employers, in particular the small employers, it is a heavy burden. It is also unfair to the larger employers. Please do not forget that in the last 20-30 years' time, for the employees' entitlements, I think the employers have been made to pay more and more. In year 2000, there was the introduction of the MPF. So we asked if we could sort of cut the pay so as to cater for the MPF, and the answer was no. I don't want to criticize you as the chair. You are being very biased. I think outside of the chamber you have been giving a lot of comments. I don't want to talk to you here. I don't need an answer from the LD. You have been adamant. You have been standing firm. Seldom have you done so, and so correctly. I have sympathy for you. You are being criticized by our colleagues, but then you are not to be blamed. It is right to stay put. I don't think these SMEs should be made to bear so much burden.
All right. There is no need for Mr. Ng to respond. Lang Chi-chung, thank you. Indeed, if you look at the figures, well, it has not been changed for more than 20 years. So I think it looks like you need to review it. All right, according to the Deputy Director or Deputy Commissioner, that's because the wage index has not changed much, and it has not gone too much up above the 22,500 threshold. All right, listening to the justifications put forth by other members, I find it not very convincing, because the complexity of this lies with the offsetting arrangement under the MPF system. If that had not been the case, then I would not have much qualms about what you said just now. Given that offsetting arrangement, is it that you said that the most important factor was for people who have been made redundant and who have been offered LSP? That's because the purpose of introducing the LSP was to ease their financial pressure due to the unemployment. So apparently this is just for the short term. From another perspective, the Labour Department should conduct another review on the cap in order to see how the problem can be better addressed. So you're referring to the cap of $22,500? Yes, because your justification for not adjusting it is that $22,500 has been able to cover most of the workers and therefore is adequate, and there is no need for a review. But that my issue is, well, there is another factor to be considered. That is the offsetting arrangement under the MPF mechanism. And if you have adjusted the MPF threshold, then there is no reason why you do not adjust this too. All right. Well, for the wage index, it's been adjusted upward. But then, if you look at the purpose of introducing the LSP in the first place, I think the situation has changed somewhat. In 1986, when we introduced the LSP, we did not have the MPF mechanism yet. That's why, all right, for severance payment, well, if you're dismissed within 2 years, then you'll be eligible for for severance payment. But then, for people who have worked for a long time for the same employer, nothing more will be offered. So in 1986, when the system was first introduced, well, we can see that, well, for people who have worked for a longer period of time, and if they are age, they would not be offered any welfare. All right, some of them might have to retire as a result of this redundancy arrangement. So there were two objectives. One would be for the short term, and another would be for the longer term. But then by year 2000, we have already introduced this MPF, and therefore for the LSP and the MPF, in both cases, if you've been with the same employer for a certain period of time, the employer will have to pay you the LSP and also the MPF at the same time. So for the offsetting arrangement, the ceiling has been increased already, but then as the two are separate issues, that's why it's not easy for us to compare the two very briefly. But then, as we have said, for the 22,500, it has covered most of the workers. That's why there is no urgency for it to be reviewed. But then for some people, they might not be offered LSP. They might be offered only as SP because of the short term of service. For example, if it's less than 5 years, then of course you will not be able to get the LSP. So for these people, is there a need for the 22,500 to be reviewed? I think there is a need because you should be looking at the wage index. Because you do have this offsetting arrangement under the MPF system. Both SP and LSP can be offset. All right, we have 3 more members. Definitely we will overrun 12:45. So can I extend it by another 15 minutes? Because as you can see, he is already repeating his replies. And I think we should avoid duplicating or repeating what we have said already. We all know the stance of the administration, so please be brief. So Chen Yun-han, Hon KWOK, and Hon KWOK, 3 more members. Chen Yun-han, well, definitely I'm not going to repeat what I've said. Well, in terms of the meaning, it might be repeated. All right, as the trade unions have been criticizing you in the past, all right, well, if you earn more than 22,500, you'll not be able to get anything. So why is it that you have never thought about introducing an offsetting arrangement? All right, Tommy Chung is not here. Christopher Chung Felix Chung is not here either. I think that has been introduced for many years already. All right, the MPF has been in place for more than 10 years. So you haven't done anything to improve it at all. Why not, Mr. Ng? You will have to answer the question. Can you answer the question? Well, just staring at me will not solve the problem. So what's your point? All right, objectively is 22,500, and now for the MPF offsetting arrangement, the cap has been up to $30,000, and yet you have done nothing at all in terms of the LSP cap. Why? Well, for SP and LSP, if you adjust it upward too much, then what you're going to get under the MPF in the future will be even less. No, that's not the point. Because if the offsetting arrangement is not reasonable, then you should scrap it. It doesn't mean that you should not increase the cap for LSP and SP. As to whether or not the offsetting arrangement is reasonable, I think there are divergent views in the community. The employers are saying that it's too much. All right, for MPF and also the SP and LSP, well, you said that the situation is very delicate. That's because the administration was not bold enough in dealing with that in 94-95, right? Anything that you'd like to add? Well, it was passed by this council back in 94-95. I do not agree. All right, even if that was the situation, all right, it's been here with us for more than 10 years, and if you continue with that offsetting arrangement, then for people who are retiring now, is going to do a lot of damage to them. I think you're talking about another subject. No, I think that's a very fundamental issue. So Madam Chen is saying that the offsetting arrangement is a fundamental problem. But then if you look at it from another angle, all right, given the fact that you have this offsetting arrangement, there is no harm if you increase the cap here. So the point is about scrapping the offsetting arrangement, because you're talking about the contribution made by the employees, and why are you not prepared to do even this? So of course for us, of course we'd like to scrap the offsetting arrangement, but then before it can be done, why are you not prepared to increase the cap for the LSP? Well, for the 22,500, you're talking about some $75,000 that the employee will be able to get for the short term. So as a short-term relief, I think that should be enough. All right, following your logic, then the workers should not get any pay rise. Is that right? So you can say that you've already got enough. Then why bother to increase your wage? If that is the case, then you can just freeze all the fees and charges and the pay and the wages. I think we have to be fair to all the parties concerned. To be fair, well, if you increase the cap, then that would also be used for offsetting the MPF payment or contribution, then why do you not allow the workers to get more? So given the fact that it's not reasonable, then you should deal with it. Mr. Ng? Well, if you increase the ceiling, and if it's used to offset the MPF contribution, then that means the worker will be getting less for his MPF payment. This is a historical legacy because in 1995 it was passed by this council. Well, the law will have to be updated from time to time. Back in 1995, after you introduce this, it doesn't mean that it cannot be changed. If that's the case, then why bother to introduce amendment legislation in the first place? Yes, we hope that we can foster a consensus in the community before we make any changes. Sorry, I've been late for this item. Just now, what Ms. Chen Yun Han said, I think we will have to make it clearer so that the media will get the correct message. Well, for a worker earning $22,500, so it's about 25%. So for people earning $22,500 now, all right, for the employer contribution in 2 years is about $30,000, and then if it's capped at $22,500, then the amount of severance payment that he gets will be $30,000. So for workers earning more than $22,500, in fact, he doesn't have to go after the employer for severance payment because he'll be getting that anyway. Because for people earning more than $25,000, it will be out of his own pocket. That's ridiculous. And then for LSP, initially it was set at $15,000. All right, it's now increased to $30,000. How come for the MPF mechanism you have this mechanism to adjust it, and this is not done for the LSP and SP? So if you are not going to do this, then of course I'll go after you for something else. So would this be discussed at the LAB? And Chairman, can we ask the Labour Department to provide us in writing, that is for the $22,500 cap, when was it introduced? And also, as far as the workers are concerned, so at what level was it pitched at? So what's the wage, what's the median age back then? And it's more than 20 years now. Well, it was set in 1995. Because, well, in 1987, it was set at $11,500, and then in 1995, it was adjusted to 22,500. But then it's been more than 20 years now without being adjusted. And if you look at the wage index, it should have been set at more than $30,000 right now. All right, for the MPF, you have adjusted it to $30,000. So after the workers have received a pay rise, so they do not have to go after the employers for severance payment. Is that what you're trying to do? Because what they'll be getting will be less. So, Mr. Tan Kap-yew, you also asked if the LAB would be discussing this. Yes, please answer the questions. Well, I have to clarify. It's not true to say that there has not been any change because this year there has been more than 10 adjustments, and by April this year the maximum cap, well, back in 1995 it was the maximum amount that you can get was $210,000, and now it's $390,000, and to a certain extent for workers who are more senior in age or who have worked for the same employer for an extended period of time, they will be able to get more. And there are a series of issues at stake. But then there are other adjustments, for example, employee compensation and so on. But then you will have to answer the question about the LAB first. So we'll go back and consider it. So there is no answer at all. All right, I understand that if you ask the LAB, to deal with this issue of paternity leave and also the change to the 4118 rule. Well, it already has its hands full. But for this, well, supposedly the workers will benefit, but then some of them might have reservation about this. I've never seen an employee benefit which would cause so much anxiety on the part of the employees. So there is no reason why, after adjusting the MPF offsetting arrangement cap, you are not going to adjust this correspondingly. All right. If you're prepared to scrap the offsetting arrangement, then I'll not be going after you for this. I think you've been nagging for more than an hour now, and still they are not prepared to concede. Yes, the LAB has already got a long list of issues to discuss. Well, I don't think they would mind having more meetings so long as it can help.
Next, Hon KWOK Wai-keung. Mr. Chairman, of course the logic is clear. Mr. is virtually saying that for the entitlements of the employees, if they are to be backed up by legislation, then we have to consult the employers. So I think if we expose the truth, it is a very painful experience. Yes, we've got the LAB. I did ask Mr. Matthew Cheung as to the status of the LAB in the basic law. It is silent, but you have always told us that we have to secure the agreement of the employer and the employee representatives of the LAB, and of course we can't achieve anything. I think it is unreasonable. I think the administration has got this duty. When it comes to governance, the administration must make sure that the majority of the people in the society can lead a decent living. Wage increase or expansion of labor rights through legislative means would be within the jurisdiction of the administration, but the administration is saying that we have to get it from the employer representatives of the LAB. If too much of the money is being used to offset the LSP, then of course the money left for future retirement protection will be reduced. Why can't you go for universal retirement protection so that everybody will have better protection? In other words, you should reform the MPF. I've been filibustering for this sake for 2 years, but you won't change it. Now you're using the older form of the MPF as a shield. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Now you are telling us that we need to save for the rainy days, and we can't use the money even if we fall sick. But then it is their money. This is a question. Now, we have asked for the abolition of the offsetting arrangement, and you won't give it to us. In fact, our request is a very simple one. Members are trying to ask you whether you are going to introduce legislative amendments in time so that for the working class who can't share the fruits of prosperity to be given better treatment. Are you willing to do so? Will you do so? For the LAB, will you look at it? You won't say anything about it. Are you going to abolish offsetting? You won't give a reply. Are you going to raise the ceiling? You won't tell us anything. Now, you have only got 2 representatives of the employers. It seems that you serve their interests only. Please give us an answer. Was it Shui Leung or Matthew Cheung who asked you to adopt such an approach? So what is the purpose of your attendance today? I think the employees' position is very clear. So having listened to us, are you going to change your position? So this is to rephrase Hon KWOK Wai's question. That is what's the purpose of your attendance today. Now, let me comment on the role of the Labour Advisory Board. Labour policies, labour legislation, labour rights will be discussed at this very important platform. Well, before the Basic Law, before we got the Basic Law, we didn't have a constitution. Now we have got the constitution, that is the Basic Law, which sets out a lot of rights and freedoms. It's meaningless for you to talk about the situation in the past. The LAB is effective as a platform. Now, Mr. Tan Kap-yu asked you whether you would refer it to the LAB. Now, what about if the LAB's employee representatives ask the commissioner to talk about this? I want to know whether employee representatives of the LAB can ask for an issue to be included in the agenda. Well, we have to move with the times. I better cut you short. Now, Tan Kap-yu has said that employees very much want to include this in the agenda. How many months do you need to be given to convince the employers' agreement to include it in the agenda? No need. It's the commissioner. So if employee representatives would like to discuss it, can you include it in the agenda? Of course. Do you respect the employee representatives? Will respect both employer and employee representatives, and will look at the priorities before deciding on the agenda. Tan Kap-yu made himself clear he would like it to be discussed by the LAB. So if you don't want to do it, maybe he can consider having employee representatives co-signing a petition. The CTU hasn't got anyone on the LAB. We can only do things outside of the forum. Mr. Chen, well, it's not a question for the bureau or the department. I just hope that we should write to the LAB in the name of the panel, pressing them to discuss this topic. All right, if there's no objection, we can formally write a letter to the LAB requesting this issue to be discussed. Any objection? I don't see any objection. Do we have a quorum, to be frank? No, we haven't. So we can't have it in the form as a motion. So I didn't have to ask you. I haven't asked for a call for quorum. Having listened to your views, I decide to write a letter to the LAB. Mr. Ng, please relate our request. Yes, we will tell the commissioner. Members, if you haven't got other questions, then have a happy summer break, and then we'll elect a new chairman after the summer recess.